How you doing? I'm Callan and this is Slapped Ham. The following bizarre mysteries are sure to freak you out. So hit that subscribe button and get ready for more scary content. Just like this. On the first Halloween after the end of World War II, many people were feeling especially festive. But in one neighbourhood in Toronto, a Halloween street party became a serious public disturbance. A large and rowdy crowd sprang up on the evening of October 31, 1945, on Queen Street East, which is located in the Beaches community on the Lake Ontario waterfront. The crowd was made up of teenagers, and the police estimated that several thousand had gathered. As the evening went on, the teenagers' behaviour became more destructive. They started bonfires in the middle of the road and used nearby fencing and other materials to fuel the flames. They also set up obstacles to keep fire trucks from approaching. The police responded by riding in on horseback. They made 2 arrests. These arrests sparked a march on a nearby police station. The rioters threw rocks and pieces of debris while police and firefighters used clubs and turned hoses on them. Although the riot was ultimately subdued, it pointed to some simmering social problems. The rioters were teenage boys who hadn't fought in the war. Maybe they assumed they'd missed out on the chance to become heroes. Maybe they didn't see sufficient opportunities for themselves in local life. There wasn't an explicit political message attached to the riot. It may have been sparked by some mix of youthful rebellion, misdirected energy, and resentment.
Halloween is coming. Halloween is coming. Fresh merch.
Papa?
Yes, little Timmy?
I heard Slapped Ham has fresh Halloween merchandise.
Why, yes they do, little Timmy. They've got aliens, cryptids, and this handsome skelly.
Papa, can we get some Slapped Ham merchandise?
Oh, heavens no, little Timmy. We've been dead for years.
Fresh merch. Halloween night of 1963 was going by enjoyably at the Indiana State Fairgrounds Coliseum in Indianapolis. The main attraction was the Holiday on Ice show, which drew hundreds of people. At roughly 11 PM, just a few minutes before the skating show was set to end, a massive explosion turned the festive evening into a nightmare. The cause of the explosion was a leaking tank of propane gas in the concession area. When the gas interacted with an electric popcorn machine, the resulting blast of flame shot up 40 feet. The explosion ravaged the seats on the south side of the Coliseum, sending people and chunks of concrete into the air. After the explosion, 54 people died on the scene and 20 more later on. An additional 400 people were also injured. Witnesses compared the aftermath of the explosion to a disaster movie, except that the blood, flames, and wreckage were terribly real. Only one person, the president of the company that supplied the gas, ever received a criminal conviction in connection to the explosion. His conviction, however, was later overturned by the state's Supreme Court. Survivors and victims wound up receiving roughly $4.6 million in settlements. Along with the issues it raised about criminal negligence, the explosion was a stark reminder of how no one wants a real-life horror in their lives. What should have been an evening of Halloween delight and escapism became a traumatic tragedy. Many of Harry Houdini's fans probably thought that he was superhuman. The legendary magician was famous for all kinds of death-defying stunts, including his escapes from buried caskets, water tanks, submerged packing crates, and straitjackets suspended from cranes and buildings. The way Houdini died was more mundane, though the events leading up to his death were still fairly mysterious. Late in the morning of October 22, 1926, Houdini was reclining on a couch in the Princess Theatre in Montreal. He wasn't in top form that day. Less than 2 weeks earlier, he had broken his ankle performing a stunt. Disregarding the advice of doctors, he refused to cancel subsequent scheduled appearances, including a lecture at the McGill University that brought him into the company of 3 university students. One of them, Sam Smilovitz, was sketching a portrait of Houdini as he reclined in the theatre. The other students, Jack Price and Jocelyn Gordon-Whitehead, hung around to watch and have a chat. The conversation turned towards Houdini's ability to withstand strong blows to the stomach. Unfortunately, the topic didn't remain theoretical. One of the students, Whitehead, bent over Houdini and punched him repeatedly in the abdomen. Visibly pained, Houdini stopped Whitehead after at least 4 blows. Though he had reportedly granted Whitehead permission to strike him, Houdini claimed that he had not been prepared for the rapid and forceful nature of the punches. By that evening, Houdini was suffering serious abdominal pain, but he delayed seeking medical attention. 2 days later, a doctor diagnosed him with acute appendicitis and urged him to undergo surgery. Instead, Houdini performed in Detroit's Garrick Theatre. By that point, he had a dangerously high fever. At the urging of both his wife and doctor, Houdini finally submitted to hospitalization on October 25. Although he underwent surgery, his appendix had already ruptured, and infection spread throughout his entire body. In 1926, the antibiotics that may have saved Houdini's life hadn't yet been discovered. He died in the early afternoon of Halloween at the age of 52. It's unclear whether the blows to his stomach triggered the appendicitis. One possibility is that he was already suffering from appendicitis, and the symptoms became more noticeable after the severe punches. Regardless of the initial trigger, receiving prompt medical treatment would have given Houdini a greater chance of survival. Before we look at some trick-or-treating that ended in tragedy, remember to caress that subscribe button, then tickle that little bell icon there and turn on all channel notifications. That way you'll be in the loop every time we drop our scary and mysterious videos. Trick-or-treating ended in tragedy for one family, and the case remains unsolved. On the evening of October 30, 1982, Marvin and Ethel Brandlin were handing out candy to trick-or-treaters at their home in Fort Dodge, Iowa. Marvin Brandlin was a veteran of the Second World War and the owner of a small business that performed carpet services. He and his wife had been married for 46 years. When Ethel Brandlin opened the door to someone wearing a pillowcase for a mask, she and her husband didn't realize that their lives were in grave danger. The evening had been going very well, and the couple's granddaughter had just stopped by minutes earlier. The person wearing the pillowcase had cut out holes for his eyes, but the rest of his face was concealed. When he threatened to shoot the Brandlins if they didn't give him their money, they thought at first he was just joking. The man entered the Brandlins' home and pulled out a gun. He demanded that they take him downstairs to their basement where they kept a safe. There were only a few people at the time who knew about this safe, which meant that the robber was likely acquainted with the family. When the couple reached the kitchen, Marvin Brandlin tried to grab the robber's gun. The Brandlins were still not fully convinced that this was a real robbery. They thought it possible that someone was pulling a Halloween prank on them and only pretending to perpetrate the crime. Unfortunately, it was not a prank. The robber shot Marvin Brandlin and ran from the couple's home. Before leaving their home, he removed the pillowcase and threw it away from him. Marvin Brandlin wound up dying during surgery in the early morning hours of Halloween. Less than a month later, during Thanksgiving, Ethel Brandlin suffered a breakdown. A few months after that, sadly, she passed away. Surviving family members are certain about the identity of the criminal. They claim it's a family acquaintance and that this person actually bragged about the crime. The police also have Ethel Brandlin's description of the suspect. Blue eyes, light-coloured hair, a height of roughly 5 feet 8 inches, and probably between the ages of 16 and 20 at the time of the incident. If there's a prime suspect, why has no one ever been arrested? Apparently the evidence remains insufficient, not strong enough to hold up in court. For example, the pillowcase that the murderer left behind at the Brandlins' home was subjected to a DNA analysis decades later, but it didn't contain enough genetic material. For the time being, the murder of Marvin Brandlin is a cold case. Now, if you want some more unsolved mysteries, then check out that link on the top there. Otherwise, this massive paranormal playlist here will freak you out. Now, remember to leave us a comment down below. We love getting your feedback, and pulverize that thumbs up button. And that's it for me. I'll see you all next time.